Some quick updates about the redemption process. We're entering into the asset transition phase. So we'll be getting the assets to take over, and then we can start the process. So that's a major step forward. I'm looking forward to getting this underway. So that's good news. Let's see. And so as soon as we have all the assets in place, we will announce the date. So we're not going to have Vulcanize run any of the servers, right? We're not going to have Vulcanize run the instances. We'll be running all the instances because we want to be in control of that. They're not going to be running the actual process. We'll run the process. So they've been developing the code for the taint analysis, the ERC20 asset, and the clean path code, and we'll be taking over those assets to run the process. So as soon as we have all those, then we will announce the date.
Cool. Do you have an ETA on it, Greg, or is it like, you know?
Well, Rick and I were talking. We kind of discussed having the assets by Friday. I don't know if that's nailed down yet, but that was the decision.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the Vulcanize update. Let's see. We have lots of other updates. Ed, do you want to give some, and then I'll talk about what was some of the technical stuff.
Oh, sure thing. Hi, everyone. Organizationally, we've been working on the formation of the holdings company and the agreements to finish that process, as well as the pitch deck to investors, which I've gotten lots of great feedback on and revision there. There's also an agreement that we're forming between the holding company and the cooperative, so that the holding company will essentially purchase some rocks with a deferred payment, which will be essentially the investment that the holding company. Let me rephrase that. The contract that the holding company will pay the cooperative to develop a certain aspect of the platform itself. So that's pretty well drafted and working through these details. Greg and Navneet and I are going to get together next week to work out what's called a work breakdown schedule, or basically the beginnings of a project plan for the platform, and so that we can get pretty high clarity on the milestones that will later have payments attached to it. Let's see what else is going on. I think that's the major update from my side.
That's interesting. Like a holding company. What was the rationale for a holding company? Is it for a correlation between the for your project, Ed, as well? Is that how that works?
Yeah, that's a major part of it. So any major investor wants assurances of profit over time. So the cooperative, the opportunity there is speculation on tokens and the ecosystem around there, but to have all of the diligence and for-profit motivation, that's the reason for the holding company. And the holding company, we're intending would, for example, take an investment in stake in LivelyGig to build out the social network and the also the freelance marketplace as example. So and then there's other projects that would start up as either incubated or accelerated out of the holding company as well.
So the Divi is working with a client who's building a major system for a political platform, and with a multi-level reward system built in. And one of our requirements is that it's RChain ready, which is a challenge. And I've started a community project on that area. But I'm wondering if there should be more of a relationship among the Divi and the RChain and the client in order for us to work toward meeting that end of being RChain ready.
Yeah, I don't know offhand or have an opinion one way or another, but certainly the dialogue is great. On the co-op, one of the early things that needs to come into fruition is how to manage membership and get membership, and then how to vote among membership would follow that. But we're still bootstrapping a lot of this organizationally.
Yeah, and I don't know, HJ, myself, Plan Eater, and Gary have been working on some things in that area. I don't know if we need, we probably, I guess Patrick was just mentioning we need to coordinate a little more on this and to work toward doing that. In my investigation of the tools that are available for membership management at this point, and some feedback from Greg on more of a blockchain solution, there are some contracts that are interesting to work towards the membership management things that are coming out every week. But my suggestion was to manage it on a spreadsheet initially, and work toward a blockchain solution. And
oh, I see. Manage the membership on a spreadsheet first.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that could work. I think there are like probably half a dozen of these packages, right?
Oh yeah.
And open source solutions for membership management, and then part of what has to be done at the same time is the accounting for the membership dues, or I don't know if it'd be considered revenue to the co-op, but however those dues are accounted for.
Has anybody had any more thoughts on how we would price membership over time?
Yeah, well, initially at $20 per membership for 1 year is the price that the board set a couple weeks ago. But over time, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing is to keep it low, right? I mean, it needs to be substantive enough that you know what you're doing. If it's $1, you may just not even remember. But if it's $20, you're going to stop and go, wait, why am I doing this? And that's kind of that's kind of right. So it's not prohibitive for anybody, but it makes you kind of stop and go, oh yeah, that's something I want to do.
Yeah, what I would like to say is it's not necessary that the board invents all these things for membership. I mean, there's lots of people who can participate in this also.
We agree. 100%. Yeah.
I would like to set up a virtual office in which we can discuss this kind of things.
Yep, I read your notes on this, and I'm very supportive. The directors all have to get together, right? There are now 5 of us.
So within the first year, in the first year after membership is open, can we say that people can get $20 of utility out of the platform?
Oh, yeah, they'll get a lot more than $20 of utility out of the platform.
Or that it'll be working to an extent that they'll get $20 worth of value within the first year.
That's a great question. I mean, I feel very optimistic about that, but I'm not gonna make promises based upon how long everything takes.
Of course. Well, that's yeah. That's my point in asking is that the membership the membership price, I don't think it should be flat. And $20 seems really high for a platform that doesn't have any utility currently. And although $20, $20 is low, right? But as you said, Greg, it is enough for people to stop and say, wait, why am I doing that? But we hope that when they ask that question, their answer is still, oh yeah, I really support this project. This is going to be great. And I'm still not upset that I don't have a working, project yet, right?
So in addition, the membership buys the right to vote on those items that are bought before the membership, including future board member elections and other issues like that will affect greatly the subsequent year and how the platform develops.
Right. Okay. So it'd be, was it decided that it would be just a flat rate indefinitely?
Well, for the time being, I mean, it may change over time, but essentially, I mean, I will freely admit and acknowledge I'm just trying to copy REI as much as possible.
Yeah, of course,
yeah,
of course. That's how we save time.
Yeah, exactly. Straight up, simple, flat, right? The fee doesn't prevent anyone from joining. So essentially, the membership is open, right?
Right. Yeah, we just want to make sure that people aren't, I guess, angry at the end of a year when they don't think that they've gotten $20 worth of value out of having that. My initial thought.
So sorry to interrupt, Joseph, but let's think about some of the events that are most assuredly going to happen within the next year, and probably within the, so the project gets funded to the tune of roughly $10 million. So I think at that point, nobody's going to be going, ooh, I'm worried about delivery. Right. So, and then already we're starting to see some significant development, right? So we have some very nice results from David Curran's storage. We have the source-to-source compiler already, well underway. I don't want to make any promises about timelines, but I think we're going to be on a very, very good timeline.
That's what it looks like. A lot of good news recently.
Yeah, so I don't think that anyone who ponies up $20 for this is going to look at those kind of events and go, I'm worried about this project. But maybe you're right. So please continue with your.
Well, one of my thoughts was initially, and this would really help with adoption, I think, was to make price a logarithmic function that would table out at whatever predetermined levels. So in such a way that every membership is more expensive than the last membership, but only by a little bit, and that it approaches a certain ceiling, say $20. That way, early on, memberships are cheaper, right? So early movers advantage and reward, which is difficult to try and get these things underway. And then as we reach certain points, obviously we could alter that to whatever we see fit.
Sure.
The important thing is adoption, right?
Yeah, understood. The important thing here is that membership is not we're not looking at this as a significant revenue stream, right? It's more like effectively it's a kind of KYC, right? At the point that someone ponies over $20, we're going to be able to have an engagement with them that allows us to see that they're going to share information like email and contact, other kinds of identifying information, right? That's really what a lot of this is about, right? Because as soon as someone enters into that relationship, we do have to do more significant KYC.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not a revenue stream. This is not an ICO. It's not a we're not doing a coin offering or anything like that. It's just really just.
Just membership.
Just membership. Do you want to be a part of this project, and if you and have voting privileges and also obligations.
Yeah.
Can I ask I mean, this might sound like a very stupid question, but okay, with the level of how the co-op is going to go, has it been deemed whether it's kind of going to be for profit yet?
Oh yes, actually, when we filed articles of incorporation, it's a for-profit. Yeah, if Evan were here, he could tell you the exact number. There are a couple of different numbers that are associated with Washington State cooperatives, and like one is 23 and one is 24. I don't have the exact number in front of me. I'm sorry. I should be more facile with that. But we are just like the REI. It turns out was grandfathered in under some older Washington State laws, which allowed them to be kind of half 23 and half 24 for certain things. But for us, it is for profit, but essentially all the profit goes right back to the membership.
Does it act like a typical company then? Like, would you say like it's more like?
No, it really doesn't. It acts like a cooperative.
Right. Okay.
Right. So one member, one vote, and there are regular membership meetings. The membership understands what the obligations and rights are as being a member. They understand the relationship of the board, and the membership elects the board. So it doesn't act like a limited liability corporation. It's really quite different, right?
Right.
Nothing stops anyone from becoming a member unless they don't have $20. And if they don't have $20, we might be able to work something out.
Is it? I mean,
I think this first year, it is sort of a workers' cooperative, and being a member gives you the opportunity to work in some manner for RChain and earn rock. So you get your money back in that respect.
Well, you get a discount, right? Right. You get discounts on you get rebates on rocks, right? That's just like REI, right? You walk into REI, you buy a bunch of REI stuff. At the end of the year, what happens? Well, you get rebates on all your purchases, right?
Well, there's nothing to buy. What I'm saying, it's different. It's a workers' cooperative where the community member is doing marketing, they're doing organization, they're doing development, they're doing other things where they're earning rock by being a worker in a workers' cooperative. Until we have a product, it's not really a consumer cooperative.
I think you raised a good point. I'm just now looking at the chat, and I think Joseph's point is also important, right? So so you're worried about the loss of control. Is that correct, Joe?
Well, yeah, too much membership too soon, or membership that's too expensive. I mean, we eliminate a huge market share, and so there's kind of a sweet spot between adoption, right? Like we want people to hear about the project, and we want the membership scheme to be known, but everyone gets one vote, right? So we don't really want the project hijacked too early. At the same time, we don't want to hinder anyone from gaining membership because whoever it is, because we don't know who it is, perceive it to be too high. That's my own.
Yeah. Okay, that makes a lot of sense, and that's where I think your intuitions about an exponential curve are probably spot on. But I think that it's going to be natural. I think what the exponential curve is going to be, or the logarithmic curve, depending on which direction you're looking at this from, is really going to be the number of people coming in. My sense is that we're still very, very much in the noise for most people, right? There are maybe 10,000 people tops who know about this project. Tops, max.
In the world.
In the world, right? Out of the 7 billion out there. So we're mostly completely unknown, and of the 10,000 people who do know us, what's the sense of what's the sense that they're going to flood us with? I mean, if 10,000 people join as members tomorrow, that would be awesome.
No, I don't think at $20 that we really have to worry about that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah.
So also, sorry, this is Ian. I'm here with Pat and Susan in St. Petersburg. So Susan pointed out something about the difference in membership between RChain and REI. REI has a lifelong membership. So we're looking at a yearly fee. So,
yeah, it's a yearly subscription, right? I mean, yeah.
And you mentioned going through some KYC. So, state the obvious that members have real identities. So we know who they are. We don't have anonymous members.
No anonymous members, because that becomes way too dangerous, right? Then Joseph's concerns are much more warranted.
Especially for voting, we have to validate that we have one person behind each vote.
That's exactly right. That's exactly what that process is there for.
Cool.
Yeah.
What that also means with $20 being the value is that purchasing votes becomes harder, because someone who wanted to sell their vote, to compromise their vote, it would cost just above $20, right? It would cost like whatever that person values, above $20 in order to give up their vote.
So we're going to have transferability of membership?
No, I'm saying like to mitigate that problem. Because there's really nothing stopping me from saying, listen, I have $21, I'll give you $21 if you cast your vote in this particular way. So the number being high is beneficial in that regard too.
Yeah, that's a fair point, right? I think that's exactly what we need to worry about. But I don't think we have to worry about that until this becomes a much more popular project.
Yeah.
And we've set it up so that we can, the bylaws and other things within the co-op are flexible, right? So yeah, I absolutely agree. These are important and strategic discussions. Cool. So I thank you all for this interesting discussion, right? I mean, these kinds of governance questions are really quite subtle, right? And they never seem to be fully answered.
And when we go back to the point of Jim, by earning ROCs for doing work for the co-op, is that also possible?
Oh, absolutely. Yep. Absolutely. Yes.
Okay.
So the co-op becomes the home for the rock marketplace, the rock economy.
Yes, that and also the holdings company, right? Don't forget the holdings company.
And we could start it immediately. I mean,
yes, we can. Yes, we can. So the next step is we take over the instance that has the ERC20 contract that has the coin minted. And once we have that instance and we have the addresses for the directors, then we can start doing that process right away. That's right. So there's lots of things that are all fit together in a kind of puzzle.
Have there been any more conversations around other coin offerings?
Yes. So we're currently talking with Alex Balkin of CoinFund to maintain and manage a kind of smaller sale. So what's happened is that a bunch of whales came forward to me and said, we want to engage, but we want to do so with Bitcoin or with other coins, with other ways of paying, and I was like, at this point, let me just get through the redemption process and get the co-op formed and do a few other things before I consider that. So I gave them the bring me the broom of the Wicked Witch of the West solution. I said, organize yourselves. And Coin Fund managed to, said that they could manage such a process. And so those conversations are underway, right? But none of that's going to happen until after the redemption process is complete. I don't want to run a giant ICO. And so if the whales who came forward wanting to purchase rocks want to do so, in a way that widens out that sale, then and Coin Fund wants to manage that, then I'm okay with that, but we'll have to run it by the other directors, right? So there are 4 other directors who have to be okay with that now. So I'm okay with it, but I honestly don't want to manage the process. What I really want to get to is managing the delivery of RChain. And I think that everyone can see if you're watching what's going on in Rolang and RoVM. That's where my heart and soul is, right? That's what I'm delivering on right now while we're doing these other things, and I hope to ramp up that considerably more. That's what I think is probably most important for everybody, because as soon as you guys can start running contracts, right, then things are going to really change. And that's my aim. Okay, so along those lines, unless we have any other issues or topics to discuss, one of the things I want to do is to talk a little bit about the source-to-source compiler. First of all, I want to give a shout out to KAS or Kaz, who's been asking me lots and lots of great questions on the Rolang channel in Slack. He's really engaging. I think he's helped a bunch of people get Rosette VM stood up. So that's really good news. And this is the kind of engagement that we really want to have. So we want to get young developers in here. We really want to get as many young developers, and I'm gonna say this out loud: as many women developers in as possible. I find that technical projects are greatly improved when women developers are engaged. So I can't hear you. I think you might be muted, Patrick. Oh, you're muted again. You muted her again. So say it one more time. One more time.
I'm just trying to put a plug in for women in terms of marketing and strategy.
Yes, that's correct. Basically, when women get involved, things go much better.
Well, you couldn't have anybody more enthusiastic about what you're doing and where it goes. I was very front and center at the conversion of analog to digital telecom, and I see this as the next fun game I get to play.
Wow, that's great. That's really good. That's awesome. And I totally agree. I totally agree with you. This is very much the next one of the most important phase transitions.
Well, I was ground zero at the collapse of AT&T as a monopoly.
Wow.
And I see I see we're at that same space now. Yeah. And boy, do I want to be part of it.
That's awesome. That's so great. I am really, really glad to hear that. Yeah. I totally. What is AT&T? Awesome. Yeah. So a big shout out to the community. If you know folks, who want to get engaged, but especially the younger folks, and I'm not being ageist, but just here's my experience. Every time I enter into the blockchain space, I start talking to some of the younger folks, and because they've been living and breathing this, they have ideas about how to use blockchain technology that just never occurred to me. It was just like coming completely out of left field, completely surprised, and we need lots more of that. So that's my sense of things. So big shout out to Kaz and exactly. What is Chase Bank? That's exactly right. So the what he's been doing is asking a bunch of questions regarding the source-to-source compiler, and so people who are hey Jake, good to see you.
Hey Greg, how are you?
Good to see you here. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
So the source-to-source compiler, I've now almost got the complete compilation path for the sort of hello world contract. So should be another week, maybe two, and then we'll be able to start testing the hello world contract against the Rosette VM. So imagine, yeah. So imagine what happens when we have, the $10 million in the bank, and we can actually get more people engaged and more people pulling on the code and pushing on the code like taffy. So that's I'm very, very excited. Similarly, I'm excited about what's happening with the storage layer. And let's see, there were a couple of other things. Oh yeah, I'm also super excited. We do have another young person, Andrew Watson, who is officially on the team. And he and Alex have been asking some really good questions about some of the language design primitives. And let me share with you some of those. They're also asking great questions about concurrency control and all kinds of stuff. Let me just share with you our sense of the language design stuff. This is only because I'm a language design geek and I love language design. I'm sorry. You have to put up with me, at least for a little while longer. So here is some of what came out. So let's talk a little bit about what was driving that. So Alex was asking some questions about concurrency control in the context of joins and what the semantics is. And so here, and then Andrew was driving that by trying to make it as concrete as possible. I was, of course, answering the questions from the realm of mathematics, and Andrew wanted to see this made as concrete as possible. So I made a little diagram to describe what's going on. Essentially, in the case where you do have a race. So what's a race? Well, here's a race, right? You have an input expression, which is blocked on input at W, and you have another one, which is also blocked on input at W. And then what can happen? Well, if you have two outputs, one which is outputting on W world 1 and one which is outputting on W world 2, right? Then there are lots of different possibilities. And what are the possibilities? Well, this output can go with this one, and this output could go with this one, or vice versa. This output could go with this one, and this output could go with this one. And depending on what happens, then either U1 will have world 1 available, and U2 will have world 2 available, or vice versa. Right, so all of those concurrency possibilities are available. And so then if you put this contract race 1 inside another race, so what's the race here? The race here is we're waiting for X and we're waiting for U1. And here, competitively, we're waiting for X and we're waiting for U2. Right, so those two, only one of these two options will run. Either you get X and you get U1, or you get X and you get U2. And so we were talking about what happens in the blockchain state that sorts this all out in such a way that it's implementable. And so I can walk people who are interested in that through that, but just in the interest of time, what we can say is essentially we'll either get Hello World 1 or Hello World 2, and that's because while the X, which is hello, will be put in as a key value pair, the other two will be put in with complex keys and their continuations. So here you have a complex key, which is X and U1, and here you have a complex key, which is X and U2, and the rest of this is the continuation. The rest of this is the continuation. So that's what's going on here. And so when either U1 or U2 gets promoted, you'll check, the system checks and sees that U1 and U2 are part of more complex keys. And then it checks to see if when you have the complex key taken together, if you have all the input. And when you do have all the input, then you can call the continuation. And so what that does is that provides the laziest possible semantics. So you won't get an early commit on the X here, right? One of them won't grab it, leaving the other one completely starved, right? You get as late as possible commit on the X, and then when the other data is supplied, then only one of these will be triggered. So that gives you a sense of the concurrency control and exactly how it gets mapped onto the blockchain state. So for all you geeks out there that I'm trying to attract to this project, please come. That should hopefully create a sense of curiosity and interest, right? Because we've avoided creating gigantic state machines for this, right? So this thing will run pretty intriguingly fast. But I would love to talk about that more with those people who are interested. But the other thing that this brought up was what kinds of operations do we have on the basic data types? Because here what we'd like to do is we'd like to say hello, right? That's what we're picking up off of X is hello. And then we'd also like to concatenate that with the world, and depending on which world we land in. So what are the data types that end up? Well, for this language, we get some general operations that work for all of the data types. So like the plus operation will work not only for numbers, but also for Booleans and strings and all the collections. So we know what it means to take two strings and just whack them together. And that's what the plus does. We know what it means to take two lists and just whack them together. That's what the plus does, right? So it's not just you know, like adding numbers or taking the or of two Boolean values. But it also works in natural and consistent ways for all of these data types. The same is true for the multiplication. The same is true also for subtraction. In general, negation only works for more restricted data types, and division only works for restricted data types. But these operations are built in as polymorphic. Likewise, all of these comparators are all built in as polymorphic. So you get to write extremely small, simple expressions in the Roland contracting language, and they work over a vast range of data types, which is something that is expected in today's languages, but it gets even cleaner and nicer in Roland because it's also well typed.
Yeah, didn't we say that channels were statically typed?
Channels are statically typed, and in fact, contracts are statically typed.
Yeah.
So you get to control what goes into a channel, and you get to control the order and sequence of things that flow through a contract. And then for even more fun, we have left and right folds. So the fold is a notion that comes from functional programming, and the question is, you know, how would we do that in a concurrency-based setting? And so we have some for left fold, and there's a little gadget here for the eye to help you remember that it goes from left to right. And we also have total for the fold right, and then the gadget goes the other way. So it goes from right to left. So you can just, and this is just syntactic sugar. It compiles down to exactly what you would expect here, but the syntax is a little bit is a little friendlier than the syntax that Odersky came up with, at least in my opinion. The time will tell as to whether or not this is used by lots of developers. But here's an example in place. The thing that we're essentially folding over is a generic monad. So what constitutes monads? Well, strings are monads, lists are monads, sets are monads. So there are lots and lots of potential monads, and we can fold over those monads generically. So since we know that channels are also monads, this allows us to fold over a channel. So let's see what that would mean in practice. So if we output to the channel M 1 through N, each one of these outputs is in parallel, so we don't have any order on these outputs. We don't know the order that they're happening, but we do know that addition is commutative, so we don't care about the order, right? Then if we output, and then to the seed, which starts off the whole process, we output 0, right? So then 0 will come in to S, which is the seed, and then the rest of the fold will accumulate the sum of the natural numbers from 1 to n. Well, that's just, we can just use the Gaussian formula and know that
True
this
for all numbers. Yeah.
will be n times n plus 1 over 2. So there, that's the use of this kind of expression in practice, right? So the client, and now notice that this can be multiple clients. We don't care, right? Each of these clients could be running in parallel. They just happen to have the channel M, and they're outputting what they want to do, and then the sum is the program that's serving those clients, and that will eventually output this. Now, in order to understand kind of the power of this, think about MapReduce. This gives you a way to do MapReduce. This effectively gives you a one-liner for MapReduce style applications. So that's why I'm kind of excited about these things. Some people's eyes will glaze over, but for me, if I can get MapReduce in a one-liner, I'm happy. So that's been a result. So all of these things that we're talking through here are all results of engaging with Andrew and Alex to discuss some of the details of Rolang and to write down examples, realistic examples for people to learn the language with. Okay, so that's a little update on what's going on with on the technical side. Do we have anything else? Ed, anybody? Joseph, do you want to talk about the architecture document for a bit?
There's nothing new really to talk about right now. And in fact, I guess kind of just spinning off what you said is I tried to take an approach when I was discussing the execution model, as is kind of typical in the blockchain space now, to introduce RoVM as a state transition machine. But I found out that it's actually much easier to just kind of sidestep the machinery that you, like the overhead that you take on when you want to describe a state transition machine and how kind of overused they are in that, or that description is. And that essentially all you have to describe is that RoVM is running against a key value database, and a state change is anything that changes the mapping from a key to a location to a value. So, and then just like, the row calculus reduction rule is the rule that changes which key maps to which value. So then I had to get a little bit into the observability requirement on state changes or assignments to locations that we discussed a little bit. But aside from that, no, nothing else really, but yeah.
Cool. No, that's great. That's great news. And I'm happy to hear that, actually. Yeah, the more people who begin like you are to internalize how this stuff works, the better. Right? I mean, essentially what we're trying to do is to actively grow a community that has a deep understanding of how this works, right? So that, I'm replaceable and And the thing can continue to work, even if, I'm working on other things. So that's really that's really what we're trying to do. We need to get to the point where the community is resilient and has a common understanding of how this works. All right, so that the understanding is objective and available to anyone who wants to do the work of learning how it works. So that's
I totally agree. More ideas to reject. That's the idea. No, I mean, that's where the best ideas come from. The more ideas you have to reject.
That's exactly right. No, that's exactly right. Agreed. Cool.
Could I ask a quick question about the sort of the Casper development and the Ethereum development correlated to the RChain technology? Like, how is that going along? I've seen the Hangouts and stuff like that. Are you kind of, obviously I believe that you're heading in the direction with kind of the, with this protocol. I don't think you're going to be using proof of work for this.
That's correct. We are not using proof of work. We are using a variant of Casper.
Right. And now I'm just wondering generally how that, how that's going, and is there any exciting developments in that?
Oh yeah, for sure. So we talked a little bit about those last week, but essentially, Vlad and I are very much in sync with the correct by construction approach to Casper, right? So we're very much in sync with deriving the vast majority of the Casper implementation from the proofs of the correctness of the protocol. So that's our method of approach. And Vlad gave a talk at EdCon this past week on exactly that. And so that was, I'm delighted that the ideas are going. I can give you, see, Vlad sent them to me via Skype. Let me go find them. I'm gonna stop screen sharing while I grovel around my desktop looking for them. Hang on one second here.
Yeah, and just to add a little color commentary, Greg and Alex, since the RChain Casper will flow right from the proofs, they will get translated right into Rolang fairly directly, and not have to sort of force fit and handcraft those like the Ethereum community is going to be challenged with.
That's exactly it. That's exactly, and that's why I'm sequencing the work that I am. Casper is far enough along now that it will help me greatly in writing down and reasoning about Casper by coding it up in Rolang. So I am working as fast as possible to get Rolang to the point where I can start writing the Casper as Rolang contracts. Right?
This is very interesting, yeah.
Yeah, which is really cool, right? As soon as we have Casper as Rolang contracts, then like one of the proofs of correctness is that the Casper contracts in Rolang will type check, right? And the properties that we want to have happen. Hang on a second. This one. No, it's not that one. It must be. There it is. Okay. And one of the things that we express in the types are the properties that we want to hold true of the protocol. And so then you can actually see the correct by construction in action, right? So you write down the properties, like, eventually we can detect equivocation, or more positively, every step in this protocol eventually leads to a safe state. These are the kinds of properties that we can express as types. And when we write them down as types, then the fact that a particular Casper contract type checks against one of these types means that we have automatically derived the proof of that property. Right, so that's the correct by construction in action. Vlad gave these Vlad gave this talk at EdCon, but I am, we can ask Vlad if he wants to make these available. But essentially,
if I understand it correctly, it's kind of like the actual proof of stake construction is going through a compilation of a smart contract in bytecode at the start. That's really interesting. Is that correct, or am I wrong about that?
No, that's I wouldn't say it exactly like that, but the essence of what you said is exactly right. So
that's really cool. I didn't realize.
That's right. So the proof is the code. The code is the proof.
Right. Okay. So it's not even. So they're not even dealing with it at like the protocol level then.
Well, what we're saying is the protocol is the proof. There is no difference.
Wow, that's okay.
Right, and that's what I've been.
Stuff like that. That's weird. That's weird. Yeah. Okay. I'm with you on that. Okay.
I'm so glad you said that. Right. This is what I've been trying to. This is the understanding I've been trying to get across for in this space for the like the last since I entered the space in 2014. Right. There's this thing called Curry-Howard, the Curry-Howard isomorphism, and the meaning, the upshot, the import of Curry-Howard is exactly this: the proof is the protocol is the proof. They coincide, and if they don't coincide, you've got troubles.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do it. I think it's definitely. I don't think that's really ever been constructed in that manner in any proof of stake protocol that I've ever seen. So, I mean, that's going to take a lot of work, but I think it would lead to more, let's say, am I correct in saying that it would lead to more malleability within the concept itself, with like definition changes and like a state change and stuff like that?
Well, whenever anyone who wants to propose a variant of the protocol will again pick up these proof obligations, right? So either they're going to have to say, well, this property here that we've been preserving is not a property that I wish to preserve. I'm going to change this property to something else, and then show that their proof, their protocol observes that property. Or and this goes for more traditional development. Let's say that you discover that if you refactor the protocol in a particular way, so this is common in development, right? You look at the code and you go, oh, what an idiot I was. If I refactored it this way, it's going to be 3 times faster, right? But nothing changes in terms of the properties I'm trying to preserve other than the speed. So when you do that, then again, just by type checking, literally just by type checking your code, showing that the code type checks against the types to express the safety properties and the liveness properties you're trying to provide, then you have a machine checked proof that the protocol is correct.
Right. Okay, I'm with you. Yeah.
All right. So
that makes a lot of sense for the proof of stake as well, because you're using that Turing complete mechanism. So basically, it's just like a reiterative fact, and then it can be refactored continuously, depending, obviously with the contract code, right?
Right. Yeah. So right. I mean, in general, a lot of development is refactoring, because you recognize, I was silly to use this data structure. I should have used that data structure. And the support of that kind of process is exactly what it's exactly what we're all about, right? Is making sure that we can support standard development process, which is agile, which is test driven, which is focused on delivery of end to end, going from an end to end solution to an end to end solution, and also formal methods. Right. So all of those things, none of those things have to be at odds with each other. They fit together in a nice way. And so then you get normal, natural development cycles that lead from correct protocols to correct protocols. That's what we're aiming for. And I believe that that's the only practical means that we can go after the blockchain space. Right. Because when you think about, right, the blockchain space, we're talking about, the world's financial system. So if billions or trillions potentially of dollars are flowing through these contracts, we better have some means to know that someone can't hack it and siphon off, a few hundred million for themselves.
Exactly.
That would also reduce the levels of the hard forking as well.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
That is
yeah.
totally the idea. Yes.
Right.
You shouldn't need to hard fork because you have these proofs, these machine-checked proofs that the protocol does what it's supposed to do. Yeah.
That's cool. I didn't know that. Thanks for that input, Greg. That gives me a very different dimension of what the protocol's even about.
Well, thank you so much for your questions. These are great questions.
So coming back to round out Alex's question, first of all, let me check my microphone. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, Greg and David and the team have been working on Rolang and RoVM. And then next up is storage, which David's working on. And then peer-to-peer and connection across nodes, and all of those essentially have to be in place in order to develop and test Casper, and that's next on the list. There can be some of this occurring in parallel, but that's kind of roughly the sequence of things. And once that set of things is accomplished, we'll be able to make a lot of great noise and attract a lot of great attention, because we'll say, look, here's Casper working. And that'll be an awesome day.
And that's exactly right. And that's why when Joseph was talking about, milestones towards delivery, right? These are the kinds of things. But also, Joseph, I think you touched upon something that I think is really important in another dimension. And that's why the holding company is there. Because we don't expect people who aren't propeller heads or who are not like total cryptocurrency nerds, right? To appreciate those kinds of milestones. Like, we here appreciate those milestones, but and it's taken us 2 years just to get to why Curry Howard is important for cryptocurrency, right? Right? That kind of understanding is not going to be the understanding of the general public. But
right, none of this has to do with user experience, right?
But when people are starting to see wallets that allow them to have transactions in seconds, right, as opposed to minute-long waits or minute-long delays, right? If they can be doing like hundreds of transactions instantaneously without any delay, any noticeable or experienceable delay in their wallets and in their those kinds of applications.
Sync the part of the blockchain you care about in less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. As opposed to waiting for 2 weeks, which is what a lot of people do.
Right.
So those are the kinds of experiences that will start to change. But then also higher level experiences. One of the things I really want to work on with Ed when we for the next level of kind of rolling out a more general public understanding is think about your Facebook feed, right? Just imagine your Facebook feed and imagine that every single one of those posts is actually a smart contract. Right? And what could be done with that, right? Facebook is already telegraphing what could be done with that, right? Because, they're already saying, this has been seen by 15 people. If you boost this by a little bit, right, then 5,000 people will see it, right? That Facebook is already telegraphing that. But of course, for them, it's completely centralized. That all depends upon their centralized technology. Now, imagine we could have exactly that feature in a decentralized manner where no one's in charge of the social communications, right? Right. That's why, Rolang is so important. And that's why this kind of space is so important. And that's how people will understand the delivery of RChain. It's through those kinds of applications and those kinds of user experiences where they'll go, I see that RChain is delivering. And that's why the holdings company is so important, right? The holdings company is the one that is developing all the applications that will be the observables for RChain's delivery. Sweet. Well, it's 12:01. I got to hop over, have stand up, and talk to you next week. Really appreciate your engagement.
Cheers, Greg. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Appreciate it.
So,
Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Guys, we're taking off too. Peace.
Bye.